Hey guys, welcome back to more Karen stories. In this video, a Karen wants to deport my kid and then pulls a gun on me, claiming that we are not citizens of this country. Let's dive right into the video to find out what happened. The first one is the title story and it is from r/legal advice and it is titled Massachusetts, my neighbor is harassing my son and me with false accusations about our citizenship status. What are my options? I, 34 female, moved to a suburban neighborhood in Massachusetts about 2 months ago with my 8-year-old son. I am originally from Nepal, but we are both naturalized US citizens. I work as a research librarian and the issue started about 2 weeks after we moved in. My next door neighbor, late 40s female, began making snide comments whenever she saw us. At first I tried to be polite and neighborly, introducing myself and my son, but she would barely acknowledge us. Things escalated last week when my son was playing soccer in our front yard. The ball accidentally rolled into her driveway and knocked over her garbage bin. Nothing was damaged and my son immediately went to pick everything up. I saw this from our window and went out to help him. That is when she came storming out of her house, screaming at my son. She called him a clumsy foreigner and started ranting about how people like us are ruining the neighborhood. When I tried to intervene and apologize for the accident, she became even more hostile. She demanded to see our papers and insisted we could not be legal citizens. I was shocked when she said, "I'm Indian American, and I know all about you Nepalis coming here illegally." She threatened to report us to immigration authorities and get us deported. I tried explaining to her that we are citizens, but she wouldn't listen. She is now taken to filming us whenever we are outside, calling the city with false complaints about our property and telling other neighbors that we are supposedly illegal immigrants who need to be reported. Then yesterday she filed a complaint with the city, claiming that we are running an illegal business from our home, which is completely false. I think she saw my son's telescope and jumped to conclusions. A city inspector came by, found nothing wrong, but it was humiliating and disruptive. I got all our documentation, naturalization papers, property deed, everything. I've started documenting her harassment with video recordings from my doorbell camera and keeping a log of all incidents. I've also saved emails from the city about her false complaints. My questions: what legal options do I have to stop her harassment? Number 2, should I file a police report about her threats and false accusations? Number 3, is there anything else I should be documenting? Number 4, can I get a restraining order based on this behavior? My son is becoming anxious about playing outside and I'm worried about this escalating further. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Comment number 1, lawyer here, this is serious. She is engaging in harassment and making threats based on your national origin. You should file a police report immediately. Send her a certified letter demanding that she cease all harassment and also consider filing for a harassment prevention order. Comment number 2, definitely get that police report filed ASAP. Her filming you and your son is super creepy and the false reports to the city are harassment. Edit, thank you all for the advice. I will be filing a police report tomorrow morning and looking into getting a harassment prevention order. I've already ordered additional security cameras for the back of the house too. I will update when I have more information. Update to the story, and by the way, ripe stars, be prepared, this story has quite a few updates, so please stay until the end to see the conclusion. So first, thank you everyone for the advice on my original post. Things have gotten significantly worse and I really need guidance on what to do next. Following your advice, I filed a police report the next day. The officers took my statement and said that they would speak with my neighbor. Let's just call her Maya. Or Maya? I will just say Maya. They also reviewed my doorbell camera footage of her harassing us. They told me to keep documenting everything and to call them if she made any direct threats. The police visit seemed to make her even more angry. That evening she gathered a group of neighbors, most of whom looked uncomfortable, and loudly announced that criminals were living next door and that she was gonna save the neighborhood. She specifically mentioned that as an Indian American, she knows what kind of people Nepalis are. Several neighbors walked away during her rant. The next day, I found my car had been keyed with the word "fake" scratched into the driver's side door. My security camera caught Maya doing it at 2 a.m. I immediately called the police who came and took a report. The officer said this elevated things to criminal property damage and asked if I wanted to press charges. I of course said yes. When the police went to speak with her about the car, she began screaming that my cameras were illegally recording her, they only cover my property by the way, and that I had forged the video evidence. She then filed a harassment complaint against me with the police. Yesterday things got even worse. My son was in our backyard using his telescope like he often does. Maya stormed to our fence and started taking photos, yelling that she was gathering evidence that we were spying on people. My son was terrified and ran inside. I went out to confront her. I know I shouldn't have, but I was furious. She got right in my face and said, "Listen here, you illegal bitch, I know what you really are. I've already called ICE and they are going to come take your fake citizen papers away. Then they will deport you and your brat back where you belong. I have friends in the government who will make sure of it." I caught this all on video. I called the police again and they took another report. They said her threats about ICE or ICE, I forgot how to pronounce that, and government connections could be considered terroristic threats, especially combined with the property damage. I have spoken with a lawyer who is helping me file for her harassment prevention order. We got a court date next week. The lawyer also suggested I file a civil rights complaint given the clear racial motivation of her harassment. So my questions: what should I expect at the harassment prevention order hearing? Should I be worried about her ICE threats? We are legitimate citizens, but I'm still scared. 3. The property damage to my car is $3,200. Should I sue her in civil court or let the criminal case handle it? Several neighbors have offered to be witnesses about her behavior. Should I get written statements from them now? I'm also worried because other neighbors have told me she recently got a concealed carry permit. Given how unstable she's been acting, this terrifies me. Comment number 1. This has escalated to a very serious situation. Your neighbor has now committed several crimes: criminal harassment, property damage, making terroristic threats, and even civil rights violations. Comment number 2. The ICE threats are empty. She cannot do anything to your citizenship status, but document them anyway because they show her intent to harass and intimidate you based on national origin. Added to the story, thank you all again. I'm documenting everything and getting statements from neighbors. I will post another update after the court hearing next week. And now we got another update to the story that goes like this. So I'm still shaking as I write this. Everything came to a head yesterday in the worst possible way, but thankfully we are safe now. The hearing for the harassment prevention order was scheduled for yesterday morning. My lawyer had all the documentation ready, the police reports, video evidence, neighbor statements, just everything. Maya showed up without a lawyer, looking agitated. During the hearing, she kept interrupting the judge, insisting that all my evidence was forged and that I was trying to steal her home. What the hell? The judge was clearly losing patience with her outbursts. When my lawyer presented the video of her keying my car, she jumped up screaming that I had supposedly edited the video to frame her. The judge granted the harassment prevention order, ordering her to stay at least 100 yards away from me and my son and to stop all contact. She stormed out of the courthouse before the clerk could even give her the official copy. That evening, I was helping my son set up his telescope in our backyard. We had stopped using it after her previous threats, but I wanted him to know that we were safe now. Suddenly, though, Maya came bursting through her back door, waving a handgun and screaming about the court order. "You think some piece of paper can keep me from protecting my neighborhood?" she shouted, pointing the gun at us. "I'll show you what happens to people who lie about being citizens." I pushed my son behind me and backed us towards our door, telling him quietly to call 911. A retired couple who lives behind us heard the commotion and came out onto their deck. The husband, who turned out to be a retired attorney, immediately started recording on his phone while his wife called the police. "Maya," he shouted, "put the gun down. You're on video and the police are coming." She spun towards his voice, still waving the gun. "Stay out of this. They are criminals. I'm making a citizen's arrest." I managed to get my son inside and lock the door, but she started kicking it, still screaming about citizen's arrests and deportation. The whole thing probably only lasted 5 minutes before police sirens started blaring from both ends of our street. When the police arrived, she initially refused to drop the gun, telling them she was just protecting her property. It took 3 officers and about 10 minutes of negotiation before she finally put it down. They arrested her on multiple charges including assault with a deadly weapon, violating the harassment prevention order, and more that I'm still learning about. The police searched her house and found 3 more guns, all legally purchased but now confiscated. They also found a disturbing collection of photos she had taken of us, printouts of web searches about deportation, and a notebook full of rants about illegal immigrants in the neighborhood. She is currently in jail awaiting arraignment. The DA is taking this very seriously, especially since she violated the harassment order the same day it was issued. My lawyer says that she is facing significant prison time. The support from our neighbors, though, has been overwhelming. The retired attorney and his wife gave copies of their video to the police and my lawyer. Other neighbors have been bringing us meals and checking in on us. One family invited my son to join their kids' astronomy club, which has really helped him start feeling safe again. My lawyer is helping file for a civil lawsuit against her for all damages, the car repair, legal fees, emotional distress, everything. He says given the evidence, including the gun incidents, it's a strong case. I'm also working with a trauma counselor to help my son process everything. He's doing better than I expected, but still has moments where he gets scared. The counselor says this is normal, and she is optimistic about his recovery. Thank you all for your advice throughout this nightmare. If I hadn't documented everything and gotten the harassment order when I did, who knows how this might have ended. The police said having all that documentation helped them take immediate action when the gun came out. I know some commenters suggested moving, but we are staying. This is our home, we did nothing wrong, and the overwhelming support from our community has shown us that one hateful person does not define the neighborhood or a country. Comment number 1, holy crap, I've been following your posts and I'm so glad you're both safe. She is absolutely going away for a long time. Thank you all for the support. Maya's arraignment was this morning. She's being held without bail as a danger to the community. I will stop updating now as this has become an active criminal case, but know that we are safe and healing. And now guys, we got a final update that was posted quite a few months later. It has been 12 months since my last update and I wanted to provide closure to the situation. So much has happened and I'm finally in a place where I can process it all. So first, the legal outcomes. Maya's criminal trial concluded last week. She was found guilty on all counts. Maya ended up in prison for what she did. She's been also permanently banned from owning firearms and will have 5 years of supervised release after prison. During her sentencing, the judge specifically cited the premeditated nature of her actions and the psychological trauma she inflicted on a child as aggravating factors. The civil case was settled out of court. Her homeowner's insurance initially tried to deny coverage, claiming her actions were intentional, but my lawyer successfully argued that some damages, like the car repair, should be covered. In the end, we received a significant settlement that covered all our damages, legal fees, and my son's ongoing counseling. The remainder has been placed in a trust for his education. What really struck me was Maya's behavior during the trial. She showed no remorse, instead doubling down on her racist beliefs. She tried to claim that she was protecting the neighborhood from suspicious activity and that my son's telescope was being used for surveillance. Her own testimony probably hurt her case more than anything else. She came across as completely unhinged. The prosecutor presented evidence that was even more disturbing than what we initially knew. The notebook they found in her house contained detailed plans to drive us out of the neighborhood, including ideas about damaging our property, filing false reports with various agencies, and even following my son to school to document suspicious behavior. The photos she had taken of us were meticulously organized and annotated with conspiracy theories about immigration fraud rings. However, the positive developments have far outweighed the negative ones. Remember the retired attorney and his wife who recorded the gun incident? Well, they've become like grandparents to my son. The husband helps him with his math homework, and his wife has been nurturing my son's interest in space. They host monthly stargazing parties in their backyard with the astronomy club kids. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Your advice quite literally helped save our lives by encouraging me to document everything and seek legal protection early. To anyone else facing similar situations, document everything, trust your instincts, and don't be afraid to ask for help. There are more good people out there than bad ones. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. So I own a big piece of land with my farm, chicken coop, a small barn, and my house. It's too big for just me, but my parents and brother help me out sometimes. The neighborhood has been quiet for most of the time, people usually minding their business until this Karen moved in last year. I live in East Asia, but Karen does not seem to be from around here. She looks different, not like the people here, but not exactly like what you would expect from someone American. I cannot figure out her accent either, so I don't know where she's from. From the very beginning though, it was clear that Karen was gonna be a problem for us. One day, while chatting with a friend, we noticed her having a heated argument with one of the workers who was helping move her things. Something seemed to be missing and she was blaming the worker, but her accent was so strong that it seemed like the worker could not quite understand her. My friend and I thought about stepping in, but before we could, we saw a little girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, timidly approach Karen holding up a bag. Karen snatched the bag from the girl and then started yelling at her. Then she grabbed the girl's wrist and forcefully dragged her inside, leaving the confused worker behind. My friend and I were really worried about the whole scene, it just did not seem right. I did not run into Karen for almost a whole month. Whenever I went out to deliver eggs or do my chores, I would see her up to something, usually arguing with someone or scolding the little girl. The auntie who helped with the eggs told me that the girl was Karen's daughter. I had a feeling, but it was still troubling to see how Karen treated her. Now, I know some parents scold their children, it happens. In many Asian families, strict scolding or even punishment is how they discipline kids. I don't really agree with it, but this is reality. However, the weird part was, this little girl did not seem like she was misbehaving or being stubborn enough to deserve all those scoldings. I shared my thoughts with the auntie and she sighed, looking sad. She said they had not even heard the girl speak once. Despite that, Karen would still scold her for who knows what reasons. Almost a month later, I came home a bit earlier than usual and noticed that the main gate was ajar. I was not too worried because break-ins were not common in our area, but I still moved cautiously, trying not to make much noise. As I looked around my property, everything seemed in order and the door to my house was securely shut. I then went towards the back of the property, where I heard some chattering. That's when I saw Karen wandering around my farm with the little girl trailing behind her. I called out to her and both of them flinched. It made me feel bad when I saw the little girl almost tearing up, but Karen did not even acknowledge her. Instead, she looked me up and down with a frown as if I was the one inconveniencing her. I asked what they were doing here, and Karen, with that heavy accent of hers, said something about exploring and claimed that she thought it was a public area. I explained that it was private property and she needed permission to be here. Instead of apologizing, she just huffed and muttered something about me being too uptight. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. About a week later, I came back home to find the gate ajar again and noises were coming from the back. This time, not only did I find Karen and the little girl, but there was also a little boy with them. He seemed younger than the girl, not by much, and he was running around my farm screaming and kicking anything in his path. I shouted at them, asking what they were doing on my property without permission again. Karen had the nerve to roll her eyes and said her son wanted to see how a dirty farm looks, so she brought them here. I told her this is not a museum where they can just waltz in for sightseeing. As I spoke, I saw the boy heading towards my coop. I ran after him to stop him, standing right in front. That's when Karen came running, screaming at me and accusing me of hurting her son. I told her to get out and she huffed before taking her son away. The little girl followed slowly, but before leaving, she turned to me and softly said, "Sorry," before running away. The next day, I found out that Karen's parents had dropped by and the boy came with them. He was apparently Karen's son, although nobody knew why he arrived later with his grandparents. I decided not to get involved in their family mess. I did, however, warn the neighbors about how Karen kept trespassing on my property, urging them to be cautious of her tendency to break in. If I were in a city, I might have reported this right away, but in our quiet area, we rarely involve the police in petty matters like this. The following week, like clockwork, I came home to find my gate open again. This time, though, there was a new but familiar smell. I approached their back with a bucket of water and found Karen using my grill, her children standing behind her. The girl noticed me, but she stayed silent as I threw the bucket of water on Karen. The little boy screamed and jumped back from his mom, running behind his sister to hide. Karen cursed at me and tried to hit me, but she was both too foolish and too clumsy, so she ended up falling on her face. I turned to look at the girl, who seemed to be smiling slightly, and motioned for her to go outside. She took her brother's hand and they ran out as Karen got up and tried to throw stones in my direction, missing by a mile. She walked out as well, threatening that she would put me in my place. I knew she would be back the next week. I don't know if she knew how to pick a lock, but she had enough experience breaking in that I found my gate ajar even after changing the lock. This time, as I made my way to the back, I saw the girl standing near the edge of the house. She saw me, but she didn't turn around. Instead, she placed her hand on her back and curled her ring and small finger, her pointer and middle finger touching. A gun. She made a gun with her hand. I understood what she meant and immediately backed off before calling the police. I did not leave my property, not because I was afraid of Karen running away, but because I was scared of what a person like her could do with a weapon, especially with children around her. The police would take about 15 minutes to arrive, so I decided to sneak into my house and retrieve my pistol. It took me some time. As I was getting out my house with the pistol, Karen came around looking for someone and then spotted me. She smiled in an almost manic way and fired in my direction. I ducked as fast as I could, even though the bullet was a good distance away from my torso. This was not good news because it meant Karen was using a weapon she did not even know how to operate. I could see the sister trying to yank her brother away from Karen, who was holding his wrist tightly. Both siblings were crying, but Karen didn't care. I couldn't find it in myself to shoot, not when the children were near her. So I grabbed a bag of loose chalk that my brother had brought a few days ago and threw it in her direction. It gave me enough time to lock myself in my house, and thankfully I heard the police jeep pulling up. I could hear Karen screaming as she shot 2 more times, and I prayed that the kids were okay. Eventually, I heard the shouts of the police, and I only came out when the officer knocked on my door. The children cried as Karen was forcefully dragged away, still screaming and cursing. A crowd had gathered after the commotion, and I signaled the auntie to take care of the siblings as I spoke to the police. They asked if I wanted to press charges, and I agreed, though I was concerned about what would happen to the children. The officer explained that they would check Karen's contacts and the kids would be taken away accordingly. It did not sit well with me, but I had no say in the matter. After the investigation was completed, Karen was not only jailed for what she did, but also for illegally acquiring a weapon. The children were taken back by their grandparents. I hope they were not as psychotic as Karen, but I never received an update on them. And yeah, ripe stars, let's hope that Karen won't roam the streets anytime soon again. Definitely a threat to public safety. And to end the video on a slightly lighter note, we will read one last story from r/PattyRevenge. This one is titled, Sister-in-law fumes about getting popcorn for Christmas. So this happened a few years ago, but my husband just reminded me of it after we had Christmas with his family yesterday. A little context, my husband has 3 older sisters, and the oldest is an absolute pill. I know the word narcissist gets thrown around a lot, but it's the best way to describe her. She is God's gift to the planet. Every guy wants to date her, and every woman wants to be like her. That is why no one will help her, because they are jealous and want to pull her down. This is how she thinks about herself. Everything in her life is bad, and she is constantly complaining and making herself be the victim. So after 8 years of her negativity and making herself out to be the victim, I decided to pull a tiny little prank and make her the actual victim. Because if I have to listen to her crap, I want it to actually be real. About a month before Christmas, the family gets a text from her with a list of things she wants/needs for Christmas. Keep in mind, she was 45 years old at this point. In the text, she made a big deal to mention how she does not want popcorn and goes into a rant saying how she always gets so much popcorn every year and she used to eat it a lot, but she doesn't really eat it anymore, so don't get her any. Welp, I decided to buy her popcorn. I wrapped it up in some wrapping paper that I didn't use for anyone else, so it cannot be tied to me, wrote her name in big capital letters with a Sharpie so it doesn't look like my handwriting, and did not sign a name who it was from. Again, no ties to me. The day of the in-law Christmas came, and while unloading the Christmas presents, I snuck it under the treeway in the back away from all the gifts we bought. In the middle of the gift opening, she opens a present from one of the other sisters, and it is a box of popcorn. She goes into this long-winded rant about how she asked to not get any, and why can't anyone ever listen to what she says. The sister apologizes, one of the nieces offers to take it, and the whole incident is brushed under the rug. The gift giving goes on, and there's one more gift under the tree, tucked way in the back. It is pulled out, given to her, and she opens it. She then proceeds to absolutely lose her mind. For the next 5 minutes she goes off making the biggest deal about it, questioning who did it, looking at the wrapping paper and not finding who is it from, trying to identify the wrapping paper. It was a glorious sight to behold. At this point everyone is tired of her and all the gifts were open, so she gets ignored because they are all talking amongst themselves. To this day, my husband is the only one who knows it was me, and he didn't know about it until we were in the car leaving. Every time I have to put up with her, I just remember I'm the one who gave you popcorn, BITCH. And suddenly, as if magic, she doesn't quite irritate me as much anymore. And yeah guys, thank you for watching, post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support me, and I will see you again tomorrow.